Alright, just making sure that my internet is rolling right now. I'm gonna throw this out there. Alright, so guys, you jumped in, a bunch of people jumped in. We've been watching my other paladin, my quick start paladin guide. That was really intended for early dungeon leveling paladin, dealing with the crap you're going to deal with in early dungeons. Now, that video received a lot of views. It also received a lot of hate. I think, I'm not really sure because there weren't that many comments. I think a lot of that was due to people potioning to be a paladin and wanting a level 60 guide. I'm not going to give a paladin level 70 guide because I'm actually not really playing that much as a paladin anymore. I'm not as fond of some of the changes that were made, but that's okay. That's not really the point. Cool new things about Paladin. Now, at a much earlier level, I'm going to check real quick, at level 30, you have your Shield Oath, which is your tank stance. You're going to want to use this generally when you're doing pulls in dungeons, when you are at least starting up a boss fight. You're going to want to pull through in your tank stance, and you're usually going to stay in tank. You're usually going to want to stay in your setup tank stance. Our cat just fell off the couch. Anyway, during your boss fights, you can swap into your Sword Oath. Sword Oath is now coming to you, I believe it's a little bit later, it's now coming to you at 35. And you can use your Sword Oath to do a little bit of extra damage. You can build up your paladin gauge by striking. In Sword Oath, you're going to build up your paladin gauge. I'll bring up my gauge real quick. So you see this little shield gauge over here. You build that up by blocking, and I think parrying might contribute to it, not sure. Generally speaking, as a paladin, canonically in day-to-day stuff, now it's a little bit different in raids. Paladins now do a lot more damage in raids than the other tanks. There's a buff. I don't know all of the stats for that. I'm giving a day-to-day paladin guide here. I'm putting it up front. On the day-to-day, generally if you're in an 8-man situation, you're going to be considered looking at the MT. You're going to be the main tank. In that situation, you're going to hop in, initially at least, in Shield Oath. Go in there, make sure you have aggro, and if you feel like you're doing okay, if you feel like you're holding aggro pretty well, and you're looking at your enmity table and everything seems to be sticking with you, you can switch into Sword Oath and do a little bit of extra DPS. Now, important things, there have been a couple of changes to Paladin in the 60 rotation, or even in the kind of the early rotation. So Rage of Halone, which is the third part of your enmity grab combo, no longer does a strength down. It used to, doesn't anymore. If we come over here, Goring Blade still doing its awesome damage over time. Royal Authority is now off of Riot Blade instead of off of your Savage Blade, so now it kind of sticks within the same like DPS-ish or status-y combo. We have Spirits Within, which is a 300 potency, decreases with your HP. Used to silence, no longer silences. Now you have a move called Interjection. I don't use it because it's not outright particularly useful to me. We also got this cool move called Total Eclipse. We have a ton of area grab moves now. Total Eclipse, which will take, it grabs enmity and does a 110 or 100 to all the enemies around you, immediately around you. You have Circle of Scorn, which is an awesome aggro grab as well, and then you have Flash, obviously. In this guide, I'm going to kind of go through your basic tanking. And one thing that I really want to put down, one thing that I really have to emphasize in this, and it is the famous goofy words of M-Tashed, you have to fucking practice. If you are going to potion in as a tank, especially as a paladin, it's not an easy road. I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not trying to discourage you, but if you want to be a paladin, you want to be a good paladin, you gotta fucking practice. I can't say any nicer than that. You really have to practice. And I would get used to your rotation and what's comfortable for you, setting up your hotbar. Generally, your grab situation is always going to be the same. You're always going to open in with a shield lob, flash your enemies, and then I usually like to go up with a Circle of Scorn once I think I have my whole pull together. If things look like they're a little weird, You can go into a total eclipse, keep all your enemies together in a group, especially if you're running with a black mage, and then generally you can oscillate between everybody, doing your aggro grab combo, and then also popping in and doing a Riot Blade, which brings you back MP, and doing Goring Blade on different adds because it's a dot. Circle of Scorn is also a dot, so it'll be damaging enemies. If you want to use Spirits Within for a little bit of extra DPS, that's great. I don't like that move unless I'm really working with a boss, just because it's really not, there's not much to say about it. Also, you'll notice there's a cool move over here on my bar. It is called Shield Swipe. Shield Swipe is potentially a fourth component of your combo. So you start out 1 with your Fast Blade, 2 Savage Blade, 3 Riot Blade, or Rage of Halone, and then now you see Shield Swipe's not going to come up for me because the Striking Dummy doesn't attack me. But Shield Swipe it has a chance of pacifying your enemy. It's a potential fourth. It's nice when you're doing pulls, especially in trash mobs, to pacify enemies that are kind of giving you crap. It's off. It tends to be off your global cooldown, so it can be pretty helpful in a tight pull. You may notice I've talked about this in another video, I have marking macros. Now some people are comfortable with this, some people aren't. I have an opener that marks 1. It's really useful because I can mark the first enemy that's near me, or the first enemy, if there's an enemy in a pull that is giving me crap and I happen to have a single target DPS around, and when I say giving me crap, I mean like pushing me around or throwing me around, and I think it's going to be a risk to the party, I use that 1 to say, let's burn this guy down, let's get rid of this because I think it's interfering with me being able to tank properly. It's interfering, could potentially be an interference for the party. I also have 2 and 3. I usually don't use beyond that. 2 and 3 are both linked to Flash. It's kind of one of those just grabs the extra enemies around me. And those are fun things. Now, going into your cooldowns. If you're gonna Paladin, you have a ton of damage mitigation cooldowns. And I can't emphasize enough, learn them. Learn them thoroughly. You have your soft defensive buff, which is going to be Rampart, and it's fantastic. And you have Fight or Flight. I usually run these about the same time, either right after pulling or right before I'm about to do a pretty decent sized ad pull. If things start getting a little funky, or I feel like I'm taking more damage than I think my healer can keep up with right away, but ads are going down at a decent pace, I pop Convalescence. And that's going to be really important. Paying attention to your HP, gauging what your healer is capable of doing, and where you stand in your pull are really, really important. And as a tank, that's your responsibility. Yes, your healer has to heal you, your DPS have to kill the ads and pay attention to DPS checks, but you have a lot on your shoulders. You really do. I'm not trying to be discouraging, but that's the fun of being a tank. That is the fun of doing it. And you have to take it, it's a lot of fun, it's extremely rewarding, and it will make you cry if you fail horribly. I know how that goes. But you really, if you're going to do this, and you're going to be serious about it, and you're going to spend the money to potion yourself up, I would definitely, or even if you're raising up a tank, I definitely recommend learn all of your cooldowns, practice with them, get your group of friends together, practice. It is so important as a tank. On top of that, when things get a little out of hand, or you're in an overpull, or you have a tank buster coming up, awareness is your best friend. This is going to be kind of the go-to for a paladin for tank busters. It nullifies your chance of taking critical damage. You're not going to use it all the time. It has a very long cooldown. Generally speaking, it's kind of it's one of your hard cooldowns is what I call them. Whereas Rampart and Fight or Flight will always be up. Awareness is something that you're really only going to want to use when you either have a tank buster coming or you have a really large pull and you can't really, there's no way around it. Ones I like to kind of keep up all the time, they have a little bit shorter cooldowns, or Anticipation, which increases your parrying rate, just kind of curbs off some of the damage you're going to be taking, and Bulwark. Now Bulwark is really, really important. It has a really long recast time. I like using this when I'm in a huge pull, and the reason for that is Bulwark increases your block rate. And what's cool about when you increase your block rate is it means that you're going to be able to use Shield Swipe, which can pacify enemies, more often. That special off global cooldown fourth move. That's really important. It's really cool. I can't really show it to you here because I got a striking dummy. And then you have kind of your anti-tank buster, which is Sentinel. Along with awareness, Sentinel then reduces the amount of damage you take. Awareness, critical damage. Sentinel, damage you take. Cool. I'll keep those straightened out. Then you have another move over here, Tempered Will. This gets rid of Bind and Heavy and prevents knockback and draw-in effects. To me, I don't use this very often. It's not very helpful in my current boss, in your kind of current day-to-day. You get it way too late in the job scenarios for it to really be particularly useful. There aren't really, most of the bosses that do this are either much later in the game or much earlier in the game. So I've never really liked this move. I've always been kind of dissatisfied with it. It's on my hotbar. It's probably going to find its way off. I didn't really talk a lot about Royal Authority. It's another DPS move. It's very, very potent. If you're in your sword oath and you're trying to burn something, it's good to run a Fast Blade, Riot Blade, Goring Blade to get the dot off, and then Fast Blade, Riot Blade, Royal Authority. That's your DPS kind of stuff. And that's kind of as much as I'm going to say about DPSing. Two, there's an attack. There is an attack. There's an ability over here that I haven't talked about. This is Clemency. This is a heal. You can heal yourself. You can heal your party members. And it's actually extremely useful. If you're going to heal, you have to do it kind of through, if you're using a controller, use your D-pad. Is a really easy way to get to your friends. What's really cool about Clemency is that you can use it in conjunction with something called Divine Veil. Divine Veil, you can cast. You can put it around yourself and your party members. What it does is when anybody gets healed, whether it's a healer or whether you use Clemency, you can put shields around people. So I usually use a Divine Veil Clemency combo. Excuse me. Finally, you have Cover. Cover is an amazing ability. It's really funny to watch people when they have a little change to them. But if you see somebody who's taking a lot of damage, whether it be a healer, whether it be a DPS, either if you can get to them, go over to them. If you can't get to them, try to type in real quick in the chat, hey, could you run by me? Once they're within a certain range of you, which is reasonably close, kind of, let's see, I think probably about here to that striking dummy, something in that range, you can usually cover them. You switch over their name. Again, if you're running on your D-pad, you're going to toggle with the up and down, hard lock onto them with X, and then you can use your cover. And that you'll absorb their damage until the healers can get to them, or until they can get free. So that is pretty much everything. If you're looking to DPS, I wasn't going to talk much about this. I know this isn't the most organized thing. If you're looking to DPS, the thing I really like looking at is you run your Riot Blade, Goring Blade, and then you're going to run your Fast Blade, Riot Blade to Royal Authority. And I don't know what the maximum DPS for a Paladin is. Canonically, Paladins don't do a ton of damage in day-to-day dungeons. I'm healing myself. I'm not used to going to that. But they are capable of doing quite a bit of DPS these days. I will get back to you at some point if I have a level 70 Paladin. Hopefully this helps, but again, learn your cooldowns. I have mine in places that I more or less am comfortable with them. On my hotbar, find what's helpful for you. If you're playing on a controller, I highly recommend putting up what I call a keyboard bar. I'm going to put my mouse around it. It's this thing up top right here. Sorry, I'm using the touchpad. It's not the greatest. But this lets me see when things are ready. I don't really use them off of that. They're repeats, but it lets me know when certain techniques are ready so that I can use them. Otherwise, that's it. Vel is here to join in. Hi, Vel. And that's just about everything. That is all. Wow, that's really pretty. Also, respect your healers. Vel is a healer, and she's awesome. And yeah. Healers are your lifeblood. If things start going poorly as a tank, again, it can be very frustrating. And this is my little bit of advice for the thing in between the screen and the controller, if that makes any sense, or the headphones and the controller. It can get very frustrating. It can get very, very tough. If you take nothing away from this, I want three things to be taken away. 1, practice, 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 practice. It is absolutely necessary to practice. 2, learn your cooldowns. I don't care if you sit down for 15 minutes and read them all and try to memorize them. You don't have to memorize them, but generally learn what they do. Learn them before you do dungeons, before you go into big stuff. And 3, don't be afraid to tell people you're new. It can get extremely frustrating to be a tank when things go catastrophic. It can get crushing. Don't blame other people. Don't blame the healers. If you did something wrong, if you think you did something wrong, if you got frustrated, take a video, play it back, figure out what happened. And don't be afraid to screw up. Tanking is extremely rewarding. It can be extremely tough. That is all I have to give to you today. I don't know if this is going to be great. I know it's not my normal high energy kind of thing, but I see a lot of new tanks out there. I see a lot of people panicking, and I saw a lot of hate in the other video, and I think maybe people are looking for a little bit more direction than I was providing before. I hope that this helps. I actually don't care if people necessarily love this. I don't really care if people jump in on it. It's fine. I just want it to help. So, from there out, go forth, tank, enjoy yourselves. I'll see you next time.